Thank you, Gagan. Ladies and gentlemen, that marks the end of the deliberations of the panelists. Now to summarize, start from Major General Pereira. In his presentation, emphasized the fact that government's grand strategy in the post-conflict scenario is based on 5 R's in achieving sustainable peace and development, for which the Sri Lankan Army plays a major role. He also stated that in a post-conflict scenario, state intelligence services has a major role to play in identifying new threats and trends. Rear Admiral Rosario highlighted the fact that almost all countries of the world depend on the sea, especially for sustenance of their energy needs and trade, which has a direct bearing on their national security. He also brought out the importance of good ocean governance to our countries. Finally, Air Vice Marshal Bulat Sinhala, in his part, deliberated that Sri Lanka Air Force is always prepared and will always maintain a substantial air power in order to ensure a peaceful environment and protect the nation of its sovereignty and integrity at any given time, responding along with the Army and the Navy. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the deliberations today, and the floor is open for questions and answers. Thank you. Yes, please.
Thank you, sir. I am Wing Commander Munim from Bangladesh. I want to take this opportunity to express my regards to Armed Forces of Sri Lanka for defeating the anarchy and terrorists. And as a member of the Armed Forces, I myself feel proud of them. My regards to them. Sir, the terrorist activities, the LTT had been waging atrocities here for a long time, 33 years, and you mentioned that they had been controlling 13,000 square kilometers, which is 1/5 of the country. It's a formidable forces. I believe that there had been many serious efforts to curb these terrorist activities in the past as well. And we have seen in the media that conventional forces had been engaging to defeat the terrorist activities, and they were facing formidable defense from them as well. So here I want to recall my friends that I made a transport pilot from Sri Lankan Air Force in USA in 2001 and shared the same class. So I was shocked when he returned the country. He was ambushed by LTT and was killed in a plane crash in Antonov Aircraft. So I feel for them also. And I feel equally that when Sri Lankan Navy used the unconventional method and destroyed that staging maritime platform, that warehouse had been used by the LTT and destroyed those ships using unconventional method. I also want to reiterate the Sri Lankan Air Force effort to continue sustain operation from Palali airfield in the north, despite which is located within the enemy territory. But my queries will be humble request to the Commander of Army, Sri Lanka, sir, what magic that you have invented in the later stage of your operation, that when we were all frustrated that no resolve is being solved in the negotiation table by the Norwegian, but very quickly you have shifted the momentum in your favor, and what that magical therapy you introduced, you curbed, not only you have defeated the LTT, you have eliminated them and established peace in this beautiful island. Thank you, sir.
Can I?
Okay, thank you for that question. You see, as I briefly explained, we had a whole of government strategy. That's why I said I brought in military at the end. Our success, firstly, we had a definition where most of the countries could not find a definition, even globally. We specifically, by definition, we identified the terrorists. Premeditated, politically motivated, violence perpetrated against innocent civilians or non-combatants by non-state actors. Now there are 5-6 ingredients in that, and by defining terrorism, we clearly identified who is a terrorist and who is a normal civilian, because it is a very difficult task. Then we isolated them globally, regionally, and locally. Globally, in 32 countries, it was banned. Regionally, we had excellent support from the regional countries in combating terrorism. Locally, this is the most important point, gentlemen, in defeating terrorism. I have to quote Mao Zedong here. Mao Zedong said, insurgency oblique terrorism and the people, or the terrorists and the people, are like fish and water. If you can separate the water from the fish, fish cannot survive. That is the exact thing that we did. With the whole of government strategy, we slowly but surely took the civilians to our side. We did not allow the population to support terrorism, which they had the support initially maybe in early 1980s. But gradually, that support base vanished due to government's whole of government strategy. Then, once LTT was isolated from the population, just imagine if those 300,000 people who were evacuated at the end of the humanitarian operation, if that 300,000 wholeheartedly supported LTT, what should have been the consequences? Whether it will be easy for a military to defeat? No. So the main effort of the government is separating the terrorists from the civilians. And then the military took on and gave the final death blow. So that's why I always emphasize the fact in my presentation, it is a whole of government strategy where we were able to separate the civilians from the terrorists and then give the death blow from the military arm. That is one of the elements of national power. I do not know whether I answered your question in full. If you have any further queries, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I was mainly interested that what you could not do last 33 years and what the special effort that you have taken in the later stage that has shifted the momentum substantially in your favor, and you have cut the terrorism actually you have surprised the world. What was that?
That I clearly showed on the slide, the political leadership. Yeah. Because the political leadership was well focused on defeating terrorism. Even in my presentation, I emphasized the fact we were able to we were able to keep the will of the nation together with us. That is where other nations went wrong in defeating insurgencies and terrorism. Where even the Americans could not keep the national will during the war in Vietnam, maybe in some other place, but our nation was backing us. Gentlemen, I'll give you certain facts to prove this. At the last stages of battle in Sri Lanka, maybe at the end of 2008, Sri Lankan army had 2,000 casualties per month. There's a huge number, 2,000 soldiers left battlefield due to death, injuries, and few absentees. The number of absentees were very few, but 2,000 left. This grateful nation gave us 3,000 soldiers per month. Now you see how the political leadership kept the national will. If the mothers and the fathers of this nation did not give us that 3,000, that is 1,000 more than the wear and tear, we shouldn't have completed this war. So the political leadership, will of the nation, professionalism by the three armed forces was the thing behind our success.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Now, may I make some comments? It was stated that the security threat has been completely defeated locally, and also it was stated that the final death blow has been given. Now, to understand this, if it has been actually achieved, so very good, well done. But whether it has been actually achieved, to understand that, we must know what are the aspects of this threat. Now, in my analysis, the threat is terrorism. The aspects of this terrorism consists of two factors. One, the military capability. Two, the most important one, the planning and controlling capability. Therefore, when it is stated we have completely defeated it locally, have we completely ousted, neutralized the planning and controlling aspect. Therefore, if that is not defeated, not ousted completely, we are faced with the possibility, which was also mentioned by one of the speakers, the possible re-emergency of terrorism. From my analysis, the thinking, the capability, they are still in existence, as we quite obviously we can see from the propaganda that is being made from the international sphere. And we are also quite aware of the financial assistance that they are sending in. In other words, the controlling factor is still working. So that is what we have to now, based on that, please consider what should be the deterrent. There has to be a deterrent. A deterrent means we are telling everybody that if you take part, get involved, assist in any form, such as bringing in weapons, smuggling weapons, training in weapons, getting trained in weapons, supporting terrorism, this is the deterrent, and you must give the factors of the deterrent. I just give one example of a deterrent. You publicize, make it known to the public that if you have an unauthorized automatic weapon, you are liable for so many years rigorous imprisonment without bail. If you have in your property unauthorized automatic weapons and explosives in your property, so many years, and you go down the line. Especially, one aspect, the smuggling of weapons into Sri Lanka. If weapons are not brought into Sri Lanka, terrorism is not active. Therefore, we make it very clear for those who smuggle weapons, explosives into Sri Lanka, this is what will happen to your boats, etc. That has to be planned out and made known. Thank you.
Shall I answer? Sir, as far as security is concerned, or the threat is concerned, I don't think I said that it was completely defeated, but I said locally terrorism was defeated. By defeating terrorism, we have destroyed their leadership and the capability. And as far as other factors you brought in, sir, I agree. Now it has become a law and order issue. As far as other law and order agencies are concerned, we have to take action against smuggling, trafficking, etc., etc. But as a senior military officer, I can vouch here, as far as LTT capability is concerned, it is completely destroyed locally. But the problem, as we discussed earlier, the ideology factor. Ideology still exists and it is internationalized, and those threats do exist. That's why I took ideology as a threat per se. Ideology is a threat in Sri Lanka. So, however, as far as the capability of LTT is concerned, locally, it is completely taken care of and defeated. Thank you for that question, sir.
If I may add a few words, sir. The capability locally is, I agree with General Pera, but capability overseas still exists. I mean, the leadership exists. Though they don't have a Prabhakaran now, there is a huge leadership crisis between these groups of GTF, the Nidyavan factor, and the Rudrakumaran. They don't have they have one leader like Prabhakaran. That's a big gap. So this overseas network is trying their level best, to my knowledge, to revive the movement, which is very difficult, almost impossible. That is where we stand. And as far as the deterrent is concerned, our intelligence services are very good. We have good surveillance on people, and in people who have been reintegrated. So I agree with what General Pera said. Thank you very much. Please, sir.
Thank you very much. I am Lieutenant General retired Masood Aslam from Pakistan. First of all, my compliments to the entire panel for a I would say wonderful expose on the overall the three military dimensions of national security. A point I would like to make is I think it has been very well highlighted by the speakers yesterday and today also. And we all understand that wars are not fought by the military alone. No nations ever win war by the strength of the military. It is all elements of national power. So therefore, it is the nation which goes at war, whether it is against external threat or internal threat, which actually means the will of the nation, the unity of the nation, and the resolve of the leadership. So that's what I think was clearly highlighted by the speakers yesterday, especially the Secretary of Defense, as well as the Secretary to the President. What I would like to say is that our experience in Pakistan also, and we also have a case in example where we are fighting now insurgency or militancy and terrorism for the last...
Please be brief on what you said. There is a huge lineup.
Sorry?
Please be brief on what you say. Give you a question because there is a huge lineup waiting.
Okay. What I am trying to say is that in any case, you see, the nation has shown its unity as far as Sri Lanka is concerned, and that's very commendable. The point which is being highlighted is that the threat continues to stay, and the way forward, which is being, I would say, highlighted by the speakers, was again all those steps, which include the reintegration, which include the reconciliation. And the point is, the physical aspect has been eliminated. The ideological and psychological aspects will be a process. And that's why the involvement of military in the nation building, besides the physical aspect, is required to ensure. So that's what I wanted to say, that your parameters, your guidelines are correctly identified. The only thing is we need to all understand that that's the correct way forward. It's not going to be achieved overnight. It will take a lot of time, and it will take maybe decades to really be free of all these external elements. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And one last question, please. Please.
Very many thanks to the panel. I will try to be brief, but I'll also be speaking a bit slower today because I think a few people didn't quite catch my meaning yesterday. I'd like to first congratulate Major General Pereira, Rear Admiral Rosario, and Air Vice Marshal Bulat Singhala for excellent points brought up at a very strategic level in terms of a longer-term security. I'd also like to thank the Lieutenant General from Pakistan, who just mentioned about longer-term reconciliation, which I'm a great believer in terms of post-conflict recovery. I'd like to bring it down to the tactical level a little bit and make a point about piracy. My current job is as a consultant to the economic community of West African states based in Nigeria on maritime piracy. And I think the underlying global position on this is very clear, that the solution lies not at sea, but dealing with the root causes on the land. And I think that that's a lesson that globally is well appreciated now. And so therefore, from a military standpoint and a strategic standpoint, absolutely, you must be ready to deal with all manner of threats as this menace spreads globally. But by the same token, you will only ever defeat piracy and armed robbery at sea, etc., by engagement with dealing with local solutions on land with the people who perpetrate it. And indeed, in terms of the Somalian situation where you have the European naval force, UNAVFOR there, that can only ever be temporary, and therefore the reduction in piracy statistics from Somali sources at the moment is very much linked to that militarization by the European forces. On the other point about dealing with the tactical ashore, so to speak, I'd like to just touch on the cyber threat that has been raised by all three speakers. Indeed, this has also been used in the UK for sporting hooligans to arrange violence at weekends and so forth. So it can be a menace in certain areas, and therefore appropriate legislation and information amongst potential users of the cyberspace in order to promote, how can I say, violent means is very important. I'd like to give you one example. The so-called Arab Spring in the Arabian states bordering the Mediterranean started in Tunisia and spread to a variety of other states. These states were generally not considered to have had democracies destabilized through the use of social media. In fact, there are several NGOs invited by the governments of those states to put on workshops for youth to responsibly use this medium and to make sure that they're not breaching any laws when they do it. Because I know as a father, and many of us are parents in this room, that our children will use these means. They will actually use whatever technology is available in order to communicate with their peers on whatever subject. And as a consequence, engagement with youth groups through NGO workshops, as I say, to promote responsible use of social media is one method that could be considered in the Sri Lankan context, rather than saying that perhaps anybody who uses this widely is in fact using it in a negative sense. So thank you very much. I'd just like to finish. I was once asked in New York at UN headquarters what in one sentence would better prevent youth recruitment by armed groups in failed states. And I said, well, two things really. You give the youth a job and you give them a voice. And the voice these days is going to be through social media. I just thought I'd raise that point. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for refreshments.